Morning settles over the coal town of Monongah with the weight of routine. December 6th, 1907. The river runs black and slow. Frost grips the ties along the tracks. Fog clings to the hillsides and dulls sound. Men disappear into the mine portals as they do every day, boots scraping stone, breath already tasting of dust and oil. At 10:28 a.m., the earth tears itself open. A concussion erupts from mine number 6 and mine number 8. Timber splinters into needles. Iron rails twist and lift. A blast wave punches outward, flattening men on the surface and hurling debris into the yard. The sound rolls through the valley, thunder to some, cannon fire to others, the mountain breaking apart to anyone who hears it. Windows rattle miles away. Horses rear. The ground shudders and then goes still. Inside the mine, light vanishes. Methane ignites first, then coal dust fine, dry, suspended in the air by years of constant cutting. Flame accelerates through the workings faster than a man can run, faster than thought. Oxygen is stripped away and replaced with carbon monoxide. Afterdamp, invisible, odorous, lethal. Men drop where they stand. Some are crushed under falling roof. Some are burned where the flame front catches them. Many suffocate in the dark, lungs pulling in poison until the body gives up. The count will later settle at 36 dead. It is an official number. It is not a complete one. Boys work these seams. Immigrants work them. Pay is by the ton, not by the year lived. Records fail. Bodies are never recovered. Names vanish into paperwork and rubble. Outside, the mine mouths breathe smoke and heat. Women run toward the portals and are driven back by guards and gas. Children cluster in silence. Wagons line up with stretchers that remain empty. The ground in the openings is warm to the touch. Watches pulled from pockets stop at the same minute. Lunch pails are found crushed shut, their contents untouched. This is not a collapse. This is not chance. It is instantaneous and final. An entire shift is erased in less than a second in a town that depends on coal for heat, wages, and survival. The mine sustains life here until it takes everything back at once. There is no explanation yet. Only the fact of the dead and the question of what fed the force that killed them. To understand the blast, we have to understand the hunger that fed it. The nation runs on coal, and it never stops asking for more. At the turn of the 20th century, the United States feeds its furnaces with black rock. Steel mills burn it until the air tastes metallic. Railroads haul it by the mile. Cities heat tenements and factories with its smoke. In 1907, American coal production pushes past 480 million tons in a single year. Winter tightens demand. Delays mean lost contracts. Coal is not a commodity that waits. It is the bloodstream of industry, and the pulse must stay high. Monongah exists because of this pressure. The town grows where the seam is thick and close to the surface. Company houses rise fast, thin walls nailed together in rows. Tracks cut through the center. Mine portals sit within walking distance of kitchens and cradles. Wages are paid by the ton. A man earns more only if coal keeps moving. For the company, every loaded car means profit. Anything that slows the flow, ventilation upgrades, inspections, repairs, cuts into the margin. Mining is framed as honest work. Necessary work. Dangerous, openly so. Fatalities are expected. In 1907 alone, more than 30,200 American miners die on the job. The number is recorded, then absorbed. It barely pauses production. Death settles into the ledger as an operating cost, something to be endured rather than prevented. The Fairmont Coal Company runs multiple mines across the region. Output is the metric that matters. Records show aggressive production targets at Monongah. The culture rewards continuous operation. Shifts overlap. Stoppages are discouraged. Warnings are softened. When the mind produces, it is praised. When it slows, questions follow. This channel exists to document what that system looks like from the inside. If industrial history and the cost paid by workers matter to you, subscribe. These disasters are not freak events. They are predictable outcomes of sustained pressure. Down below, the signs accumulate. More rail cars crowd the entries. Blasting becomes routine. Coal dust thickens on timbers, floors, skin. The public sees prosperity in the yard cars rolling, whistles sounding. Underground, conditions align quietly, precisely, toward failure. The industry tells itself a simple story. Danger is inherent. Men understand the risk. Progress demands sacrifice. How often does that story get used to excuse what could have been prevented? To see why Monongah is vulnerable, we have to go underground. The mine is not a single place. It is a machine carved into the hillside, running in the dark. In Monongah, miles of entries spread underground like veins. Ceilings hang low enough to brush a helmet. Rooms narrow until shoulders scrape timber. Props hold back thousands of tons of living rock that groans and settles with heat and vibration. Coal is cut from the face, shoveled, loaded, hauled by mule and steel rail. The work never stops. When one shift ends, another takes its place. Air is the system's most fragile component. Ventilation acts as the mine's lungs. Fans on the surface pull fresh air down the shafts and through a maze of splits, pushing it across working faces and drawing foul air back out. If airflow slows or reverses, methane called fire damp builds silently. It is lighter than air, collects along the roof, and becomes explosive at just 5% concentration. A man cannot smell it. He only feels it when it is already too late. Coal dust compounds the danger. Blasting shatters coal into powder. Haulage grinds it finer. It coats timbers, floors, skin, lungs. When a flame or spark lifts that dust into the air, it turns the mine itself into fuel. A pressure wave can carry fire through entries for miles, jumping gaps, outrunning men who never hear the ignition. Continuous operation keeps everything moving and everything exposed. Shot fires work quickly to avoid delays. Electric lighting is limited. Open flames still flicker. Communication travels slowly by runner or signal. An error in one room can kill men working far away, men who feel only a sudden wind and then nothing. From the surface, the mine looks orderly. Smoke rises from the tipple. Rail cars line up with measured spacing. Shift changes pass without alarm. Underground, the margin for error is measured in inches and seconds. The system depends on perfect behavior. Ventilation doors must stay shut. Air must flow exactly as planned. Equipment must work without fail. Any deviation multiplies risk across the entire network. These dangers are not mysteries in 1907. Engineering journals describe coal dust explosions in detail. European mines test stone dusting to smother flame. The knowledge exists. Production continues anyway. The machine keeps running. The deadliest threats are the ones men cannot see. The most lethal forces in the mine announce nothing. Methane has no smell. Carbon monoxide offers no irritation, no taste, no warning at all. After an explosion, it floods the tunnels and displaces oxygen with ruthless efficiency. A man breathes it in without resistance. 2, maybe 3 breaths. Legs weaken. Vision narrows. He collapses where he stands, surrounded by silence. Fatigue sharpens every risk. 12-hour shifts are routine. 6 days a week underground. Muscles ache, ears ring. Heat builds under layers of wool and dust. Judgment softens at the edges. Small shortcuts begin to feel reasonable. A ventilation door is left cracked to move faster. A shot is fired a little too hot to save time. A lamp lifts closer to the roof where gas collects. None of these choices feel fatal in the moment. Together they align conditions toward disaster. In Monongah, the mines show clear signs of strain. Reports note gas accumulations in working sections. Ventilation systems struggle to keep pace as entries extend farther from the shafts. Coal dust lies thick on timbers and floors, clinging to skin and clothing, hanging in the air when haulage rattles past. There is no enforced stone dusting to neutralize it, no systematic effort to remove fuel from the environment. Warnings exist, but they arrive in pieces. Mine inspectors document hazards, then leave. Their authority ends at recommendation. The company decides what halts production and what does not. Output resumes. The dust settles again. Workers feel the danger daily. They hear the fans strain. They feel the air go heavy. But they are given no instruments to measure what they breathe. Portable gas detectors do not exist here. Canaries are not standard practice. Men rely on experience, instinct, and luck. None of those can detect carbon monoxide pooling in the dark. The engineering weaknesses remain exposed. Ventilation splits are complex and fragile. One door out of place can reverse airflow across entire sections. The system assumes perfect compliance from exhausted men working in heat and noise. If you have worked in heavy industry or mining, you know this pattern. Which warnings get ignored when production is on the line? Coal continues to load. Rail cars continue to move. Dust thickens. Gas gathers. The invisible threats accumulate patiently, waiting for ignition. Monongah is not the first place where this system fails. The blast at Monongah does not arrive without precedent. It follows a trail already marked by fire and burial. In 1902, an explosion tears through a mine near Johnstown, Pennsylvania, killing 112 men in seconds. In 1906, the Corrières disaster in northern France suffocates and burns more than 1,000 miners underground. In each case, the sensory details repeat: heat that strips skin, dust that chokes, a roar that becomes sudden silence. Investigations follow every time. Reports describe methane accumulation, coal dust lifted by pressure waves, ventilation that fails under scale and speed. The technical causes are written plainly. Recommendations are issued. Then the machinery restarts. Production resumes while memory fades. Each disaster is framed as an exception. A bad shot fired, a careless act blamed, a faulty lamp named and discarded. Responsibility narrows until it rests on a single moment or a single worker. The broader conditions, the dust layers, the airflow design, the relentless pace remain untouched. Across the United States, mining expands into deeper seams and longer entries. Fatality rates stay high. In some regions, one miner dies for every 200,000 tons of coal produced. The number is stark. It is also accepted. Output rises. Death keeps pace. Engineers publish warnings in professional journals. They describe coal dust as fuel. They recommend stone dusting to smother flame and slow pressure. They call for stronger ventilation and enforced inspections. These measures are known. They are measurable. They cost money and time. Enforcement remains weak. Geography offers no protection. Appalachia, the Midwest, the West. Different rock, different ownership, same physics. Methane ignites at the same concentration everywhere. Coal dust explodes the same way in every tunnel. Men die the same way beneath every ridge. The pattern is not hidden. It is documented in reports and death counts. Companies calculate risk and decide it is survivable. Insurance absorbs losses. Replacement labor arrives. Operations continue. Monongah sits squarely within this pattern. Large mines, high output, safeguards that lag behind scale. This is not fate. It is repetition, written in blood. The risk does not stop at the mine mouth. The town is built close because the work is close. Company houses cluster along the tracks, their thin walls rattling when coal cars roll past. Blasting underground sends dull thuds through the ground, felt through floorboards and up the legs. Children walk past the tipple on the way to school, boots kicking coal chips, breathing air that smells of sulfur and oil before the day even begins. Nearly every household depends on the mine. Wages pay for food. Rent is deducted before cash is seen. Credit comes from the company store, where prices run high and debt never fully clears. Leaving means abandoning shelter, work, and community all at once. For most families, it is not a real option. The seam holds them in place as firmly as it holds the town together. Men work long shifts underground and return at dusk, bent with fatigue. Coal dust cakes their hair, their collars, the lines of their hands. Lungs burn with each breath. Ears ring from hours of steel on stone and the constant vibration of haulage. Supper is brief. Sleep comes heavy. Before the body recovers, the routine begins again. In Monongah, thousands rely on the Fairmont Coal Company. Immigrant communities grow around the mines, Italian, Polish, Hungarian, drawn by steady work and trapped by it. Language barriers narrow choices. Complaints carry little weight. Instructions are followed because they must be. Risk settles into daily life. Death is spoken about in lowered voices. Widows are familiar figures on the streets. Funerals pass often enough that the town learns not to linger at the mine mouth. Looking too closely does not make the work safer. When the blast comes, it does not stop at the men underground. It tears through households above. Breadwinners vanish in an instant, tables go empty, entire streets fall quiet, doors shut against shock and grief. The exposure here is total. Homes, labor, and survival are bound to a system capable of destroying everything it sustains. On December 6th, the system reaches its breaking point. It happens faster than the body can register danger. Less than a second separates routine work from obliteration. Somewhere underground, a spark meets methane. The gas ignites instantly, flame surges outward and lifts coal dust from floors, timbers, and skin. The dust ignites in turn. Pressure multiplies. The mine becomes a closed weapon, accelerating its own destruction. Men closest to the ignition are killed where they stand. Heat overwhelms flesh before pain can register. Others are slammed into rib and roof by a wall of force that turns air solid. Timber props splinter and fly as shrapnel. Steel rail bends and snaps. Loaded cars are hurled off their tracks, wheels screaming as metal tears free from stone. The shockwave races through entries and crosscuts, faster than sound in the confined space. Ventilation systems fail in an instant. Airflow reverses. Fresh air is pulled away from working faces and replaced by afterdamp, carbon monoxide, and nitrogen left behind by combustion. Oxygen vanishes. Lamps flicker and die, plunging miles of tunnel into sudden darkness thick with dust and smoke. Farther from the ignition, men feel it before they see it. A wind like a freight train barrels through the entries, hot and violent, carrying grit that strips skin and blinds eyes. There is no time to run, no time to warn others. Communication collapses as the pressure wave snaps doors and scatters tools. Instinct demands escape, but there is nowhere to go. At the surface in Monongah, the mine announces itself. A roar erupts from the portals and echoes across the valley. Debris blasts outward timbers, coal, twisted iron arcing into the yard. The ground bucks underfoot. Windows rattle. Horses scream and break their tethers. Then comes a brief, unnatural silence as smoke pours from the openings and hangs low over the tracks. Underground, survival is counted in seconds. Some men are knocked unconscious immediately. Others struggle to breathe air that cannot sustain life. Carbon monoxide binds to blood more readily than oxygen, suffocating from the inside. A man can stand upright and still be dying. Those who drop do not rise again. This moment does not belong to chance. It is the convergence of scale, speed, dust, gas, and pressure. Years of choices compress into an instant that cannot be reversed. Who is left with any control once the flame is loose? The blast finishes its work quickly, but its reach is not contained. The destruction does not stop underground. The force does not end at the portal. It bursts outward into daylight. Debris scatters hundreds of feet across the yard timbers, snapped like matchsticks. Chunks of coal still warm to the touch. Twisted iron reeking of oil and smoke. Nearby buildings shudder and crack. Windows shatter in sudden succession. Glass raining down onto tracks and streets. The air carries a sharp metallic smell mixed with sulfur and dust. Any thought of immediate rescue dies just as quickly. The mine openings breathe poison. Carbon monoxide pours out invisibly, heavier than the urgency to act. Entering the workings now means death within minutes. Men who know the tunnels better than anyone stand helpless at the mouths, faces streaked with soot, feeling heat roll past their boots. Courage cannot overcome chemistry. Underground fires continue to smolder. Timber props burn slowly, feeding on trapped oxygen. Coal dust ignites in pockets, then chokes itself out, leaving more afterdamp behind. Ventilation fans on the surface strain and whine, but they cannot move air through collapsed entries and reversed flows. The system designed to keep men alive cannot function against this volume of poison. The scale of destruction overwhelms the town. In Monongah, church bells ring without instruction. Neighbors run toward the yard, then stop short when the smell hits their lungs. Aid arrives from surrounding communities, doctors, miners, volunteers, but there is almost nothing they can do. Stretchers line up without bodies to carry. Water is poured where flames are visible, knowing it cannot reach the deeper fires. Containment fails because the mine is too large and too interconnected. The blast has traveled through miles of entries, carrying fire and gas far beyond the point of ignition. Seals are attempted and abandoned. Every opening is suspect. Every breath near the portals burns the throat. Men wait. Families wait. Smoke thins, then thickens again as air shifts. The mine gives up nothing easily. When the smoke clears enough to enter, the numbers begin to speak. The counting begins slowly, and it never truly ends. The official number settles at 36,2 dead. It is written into reports and carved into memory. It is also incomplete. Records inside the mine are fragmented. Payrolls do not capture everyone underground that morning. Boys under 18 work the seams and are not always listed. Some men borrow lamps. Some take extra turns. The ledger cannot keep pace with the reality of the work. Recovery moves forward in stages, then stalls. The mine yields bodies reluctantly. Many are never brought out. Some are burned beyond recognition. Clothing fused to skin. Tools welded to hands by heat. Others lie sealed behind roof collapses and twisted rail, unreachable without risking more lives. The air deep inside remains poisoned for days. Silence fills the entries where voices once echoed. At the surface in Monongah, families wait with lists folded in their hands. Names are read aloud as remains are identified. Each confirmation brings relief and collapse in equal measure. For many households, the call never comes. Funerals stack one after another. Black coats moving through muddy streets, church bells tolling until the sound loses meaning. Grief does not arrive all at once. It comes in waves that leave people exhausted and hollow. The economic damage follows immediately. Breadwinners vanish overnight. Wages stop. Rent is still due. Credit at the company store tightens. Relief funds are promised but limited, stretched thin across hundreds of widows and children. The mine that sustained the town now leaves it exposed with no savings and few alternatives. Daily routines dissolve. Schools close for services. Workyards stand quiet. Smoke still rises from the tipple, but it feels different now, heavier, accusatory. The absence is everywhere, at tables, in doorways, along the tracks at shift change. How do you measure loss when entire households disappear from the morning roll? Monongah becomes a cemetery without walls. The dead are counted, miscounted, and remembered unevenly. Numbers fail to convey the scale, but they are all the record allows. Investigations promise answers. They deliver little. Investigations arrive quickly armed with reports, statements, and diagrams, but they focus narrowly on the obvious. Was a shot fired too hot? Did a miner misplace a lamp? A single lapse, a solitary spark, becomes the headline cause. The narrative isolates human error, shrinking the disaster into something manageable, something explainable, without challenging the system itself. Meanwhile, the deeper causes remain untouched. Ventilation design is scrutinized superficially, but no sweeping overhaul occurs. The labyrinth of entries, splits, and shafts continues to rely on fragile airflow patterns. Coal dust is described in technical language reduced to secondary concern. Recommendations for stone dusting or enforced inspections are noted in footnotes, treated as optional rather than essential. The scientific warnings, the engineering calculations, the repeated reports from experienced miners, all of it is muted beneath the focus on ignition. Accountability is absent at the top. Executives are neither fined nor removed. No boardroom feels the heat that burned men below. Instead, the mines reopen. Rail cars roll. Blasting resumes. Shifts rotate. Production returns to the rhythm it held before. The machinery of coal, profit, and labor continues without interruption, indifferent to lives lost. The lesson absorbed by management and oversight is shallow. Avoid sparks. Keep the coal moving. Speed and output outweigh the safety protocols that might have prevented a catastrophe. Structural problems are deferred. Warnings become background noise. Workers are expected to adjust, adapt, survive, and repeat. The system itself endures, intact and unchallenged. Its failure is recorded in the deaths of hundreds. Its resilience measured by how quickly operations resume. For those above ground and in authority, the disaster is a moment. For those below, it is permanent. The question remains, why does it keep happening? Stopping the mine is expensive. Every hour of halted work delays shipments and trims profit. Upgrading ventilation, installing stone dusting, or improving lamps carries an even higher price. In contrast, death is cheaper. A fallen miner is replaced by the next man in line, sometimes a boy, sometimes an immigrant, willing or compelled to take the risk. The calculus is brutal but clear. Labor is expendable, production is not. Regulation exists mostly on paper. Rules for ventilation, inspections, and dust control are written in reports, but enforcement is sporadic at best. Inspectors lack authority. Fines are symbolic. Supervisors are rewarded for output, not for adherence to safety. Workers have no leverage. They cannot refuse unsafe work without losing wages, housing, or both. Compliance is enforced not by law, but by necessity. Silence and obedience protect life only partially. Casualties are normalized. Deaths underground are treated as routine ledger entries. Widows appear regularly in the streets. Funerals are scheduled back-to-back. The town learns to anticipate loss quietly, without protest. A culture develops where sacrifice is assumed. The machinery of coal, capital, and labor continues to turn, indifferent to the human cost it extracts. This is not unique to Monongah. Any industry operating at scale knows the same calculus. Risks are balanced against profit margins. Safety is optional. Casualty statistics are accepted. Production is prioritized. Those who work in these systems, in mines, mills, and factories, have seen this logic play out repeatedly. How much will a life weigh against a ton of coal? The pattern persists because it pays. Systems are reinforced, lessons ignored, and history repeats itself. Only remembrance stands in the way. Only memory stands against repetition. Monongah forces change, but not quickly. The scale of the disaster shakes the industry, and the federal government begins to create oversight where none existed. Inspectors are finally granted authority to enforce ventilation standards. Stone dusting, once optional, becomes a recognized method to reduce the threat of coal dust explosions. Ventilation systems are improved, shafts monitored more carefully, airways cleared with more diligence. The technical measures are adopted slowly, unevenly, and often insistently. Yet they represent a recognition of what Monongah and countless other mines had already demonstrated, that these explosions are preventable. The lesson is older than coal itself. Whenever systems prioritize output over human life, the outcome is predictable. Warnings will be ignored, corners cut, and lives will be counted as expendable. The machinery of industry, unless constrained by regulations, social accountability, and memory, will repeat its lethal calculus. The hazard exists as long as human labor is considered disposable. Efficiency cannot excuse neglect, and profit cannot replace oversight. The men of Monongah do not return. Boys, immigrants, fathers, brothers all, vanish into the scenes of the mine, leaving only echoes in the tunnels and absence in the town. Their bodies may be gone, but their names endure in lists, in churchyards, in the memory of those who loved them, and in the lessons their deaths forced upon a reluctant nation. Their presence remains in every stone-dusted shaft, every ventilation fan, every regulation written in response to the blood spilled. Remember them. Their sacrifice is a warning and a testament. Only through remembrance can the repetition be broken. Only memory stands between history and the next preventable disaster. Subscribe to keep these stories alive, to honor lives measured too cheaply, and to bear witness to what happens when greed eclipses safety.